Okay, so now that you've done the other tutorials, I hope we should be ready to do the animation for this Pac-Man project. A couple things to verify before beginning is that the pellets layer contains all the pellets, so you should be able to turn it on and off like that. And that the background, these two shape elements are moved far enough that there's a channel of pellets up the middle. In a previous tutorial video, they were moved a little too far to the right, so hopefully you managed to make that correction. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a new layer. We're going to call it Pac-Man, and this is the layer on which we will be doing our Pac-Man animation. So pick the Pac-Man movie clip, move it into position, and there's something that we have to fix here before we start, so we're going to use the magnifying glass, zoom in on Pac-Man. You'll see that from this, we don't know which direction he's actually facing. We know he starts chomping to the right, but in the game, he actually moves to the left. So what you're going to do is double click, and just to mark which direction so that we know on the first frame, you use the pencil tool, and we're going to make a new layer here, and we're just going to call it direction. Okay, and then you can make a little point, sort of a little line there, and then go back to scene 1 and go back to 50%, and then we're ready to go. So first thing we have to do is flip Pac-Man so that he's facing the other direction. So go to Modify, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Okay, so now we can do the motion tween, which will carry him off in this direction. So the way we're going to figure out how fast he goes is this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, and we're going to have him move at a rate of 5 frames per space, because that'll be very easy to count off because they all have these gray marks here. So what we're going to do is first, just so we can see where he is, you should at some distance past 100 insert a frame on the pellets layer and the background layer. Now on the Pac-Man layer, we are going to create a motion tween, and we will move him, go to Insert Keyframe and pick All. We're going to move him to the end position here and try and use the arrow keys on the keyboard to get him to move into place. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to move him up the maze. So we're going to have him make a left-hand turn here and maybe do a little bit of a loop here. So we have to count that off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 times 5. That's another 50 frames. So what we've got to do is first we've got to rotate him. So on frame 26, go to Insert Keyframe and pick All. And then what we need to do here on frame 26, go to Modify, Transform, Rotate 90 degrees clockwise, and now he'll be facing up. So he moves in that direction, faces up, and then we'll start moving up the stage. So our next keyframe has to be on 75. And on that frame, Pac-Man should be up here. There we go. So what we will get, and we won't see the actual motion here, I'll go out to 25%, go in that direction, and then up the line. Don't worry about the fact that this is still a gigantic project. We're going to be doing something with that a little bit later. So the next thing that we're going to put in are the ghosts. And the ghosts are a little bit different because with Pac-Man, all we need to do is rotate his direction, and then Pac-Man will go in that direction. But with the ghosts, they have some different frames that we have to swap between. So what we're going to need to do here is we're going to add a new layer, and this one is going to be called Red 01. every time the red ghost changes a direction, we're going to need to use a new layer to show that piece of the animation. So what we'll do is we'll start with the red ghost and go back to frame 1. The red ghost starts up here, and what we'll do is we'll create an animation so that the ghost will come down here and then start following Pac-Man, so we can do a little bit of a chase. Now you'll notice that the ghost now appears in that position on all frames, so what we're going to do is do a quick motion tween, and then we will remove the rest of the ghost. So on red 0, 1, create a motion tween. Step 1, he needs to move 1, 2, 3 positions. So that is going to be 5, 10, 15. So on frame 15, you can put a keyframe, and we'll pick all. And then just move the ghost sideways. I'm just using the arrow keys to move him very quickly at this zoomed out rate. And then on the next frame, we don't really need the rest of this animation. So what we're going to do is select everything after that keyframe, and we're going to remove them. So the ghost is going to go up to frame 15, and then we're going to change to a different frame, and then the ghost will start crawling down the stage here. So we're going to make a new layer. This one will be red 0, 3. The first keyframe that the red ghost will show up on is 16. So we'll go to Insert Keyframe. And then I'm going to use the onion skins to line this up. We're going to pick the red down frame. So that'll look a little bit different. And then we're going to make a motion tween. And this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times 5 is 30. So we should be going to frame 45. Put in a keyframe. Pick all. And then on this frame, you can take the onion skins off for just a second. It makes it easier for me to follow what's happening. You can move the ghost down to this position. And then, as we've done before, we can remove the rest of this. Okay, we'll do one more together, and then I'll have you do a little bit of work. We need to... Why did I call that red 2? Sorry, 3. That should be red 2. Okay, that's better. Now we're doing red 3. Okay, you can put a keyframe here on frame 46. And this is where we can put the regular red symbol in. And this is only 2 frames. So that's 10. So that's at 55. Oh, and then we'll, of course, need to move him. Why not? We'll do one more. So this way I'll do the reverse. I'll go up to frame 75. So we'll do red 04. Put a blank keyframe here. And what we want to do is we only want to carry this up to frame 75. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20. So that means it's 4 positions that he'll move in this span. And then, of course, he'll do more later. So we need red up. We'll make a motion tween. And on frame 75, put a keyframe. We'll remove the remaining. And then on frame 75, that should be moving up 4 positions. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So this is what we should get now. There we go. Okay. Now, what we'll do is we'll do some of the other ghosts. So we'll pick cyan 01, and what we're going to do is normally the ghosts bounce back and forth before they exit the ghost home, but we're just going to keep them static until they're actually ready to leave. So we'll have the cyan ghost looking up from the center here, and that will just sort of be while waiting to exit. Yeah, and that'll be fine until we're ready to do a motion tween with it. We will do the pink 01, and then we'll have the regular pink frame on the right hand side here. And then we'll do the orange 01. And with that one, we'll put the orange frame in, but his position, he'll start having to move to the right to get out, so we'll just do a flip horizontal with that. Okay. So what we're going to do is just at frame, I guess, 55 here, we're going to start moving the cyan ghost. So I guess this is frame 56. So what we're going to do is on 55, you insert a keyframe, and then we'll remove the rest of this. And then on layer 9, we're going to make cyan 02, insert keyframe. We'll put the cyan up into position. I'm going to move it up just a tiny bit so that it starts the animation. We're going to create a motion tween, and he needs to move 1, 2 positions. So that's going to be 1, 2. We can put a keyframe here. And then we'll remove the rest of this. Move that up. And then we'll make a new layer, cyan 03. Insert keyframe. And just to make this interesting, I'll have this ghost go in the opposite direction. And we're only going to carry this through to 75 for now. So we'll modify, transform, flip horizontal, create a motion tween, insert a keyframe with all. I'll remove the remaining. And then on frame 75, that's 2 positions because it's 10 frames. So I'm going to move the cyan ghost here. So what we should get is this animation, and then the other ghost should start moving. So what you should do is continue this animation. You can try to have Pac-Man eat some of the ghosts. You will need to indicate some point values for that. You can also include some cherry eating, and I'll show you an example in just a minute of what that might look like. So I'll give you an example here of the animation once it's been more complete, and then I'll show you a few of the pieces. So again, this is in the preview, so the movie clips won't animate. You want to have the ghosts pop out. I don't know, I did this at every about 50 frames, and then when the pellet is eaten, they turn blue. When they are eaten, little eye shapes fly back to the ghost home. He's going to eat the cherry here. and a few other things that will be finished. A couple of things that you're going to want to do is at the very top, I'll unlock everything. There we go. You're going to want to make a text layer that we need every once in a while when we need to display a piece of text on the screen. So, for example, when a ghost is eaten, so I'll do this on this frame. I guess on the first frame that the ghost turns into eyes. I'm going to insert a keyframe here. I'm going to go to the text tool, and I'm going to pick white so that it will be plainly visible. And then just want to make sure that the size is acceptable. So we want to do 200 points here. If you need to make sure that you're locking all the other layers, what you can do is hold Option, click on the lock for this layer, and then you can't accidentally adjust any of the other ones. So what I'll do is I'll fire a big 200 up here, and we only want that to stick around for maybe 10 frames. So just so that they can see the 200, and then it'll go away. So at some point that you want, you can insert a blank keyframe so that the 200 will show up and then disappear a few frames later. So you want to do that every time a ghost is eaten. Now for the point values, it goes up by multiples of 2 every time. So here we're going to want to type in 400 and then put it into place. And in my animation, I do want to get rid of that at some point. And in my animation that I've created, only 3 of the ghosts are eaten. And then this one will be 800. If you have all 4 of yours eaten, then the last point value is 1600. But you probably knew that because of math. So I'll blank keyframe this. And then you can see that I have my static image on the cherries layer. So what I'm going to want to do, and I'll show you this, is he's passing over. I'm going to delete the cherries here and then put the point value on one layer higher than this. So we're going to put 100 for the cherries and just sort of slide that into place. And then what you want to do is make sure that the cherries layer is very far underneath everything so that Pac-Man actually crosses on top. So I'm going to drag that to the bottom of my list. Almost there. Okay. I'll put it above palettes but below Pac-Man so that we get this instead. There we go. Okay, now for the pellets disappearing, I'll go back to the beginning of my movie. I've got this thing where every 5 frames I delete 1 pellet. Now the best way to do this is to make sure that all layers other than the pellets are locked so that we don't accidentally adjust something on one of the other layers. I'll go to the next 5 frame increment here, so I'll put a keyframe, and then I can just marquee drag around Pac-Man and hit the delete key on the keyboard, and it'll delete whatever's under him. Because the Pac-Man layer here is locked, it won't actually change that. So I'll just do a couple here. Insert keyframe. I'll make sure that I deselect, delete the one under him. And this is a little bit tedious, but it's probably the easiest way to do this. We don't need to kind of repeat this much. So anyway, and that's what it'll look like is the pellets underneath him will disappear kind of as we go along. The one thing that you should probably do before finishing this is to organize your timeline a little bit better. You can see for the red ghost, I have 21 layers associated with the ghost. So what I'm going to do is put a folder, and I'm going to call it red. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select every layer that the red ghost is on and then put them into that folder. Then I can collapse it, and it's a lot easier to just sort of go through my timeline as a result of that. So you should create one for the cyan, pink, and orange ghosts as well. And then do as much animation as you want, and then take a look at the next tutorial, and it'll show you how to fit this into a finished animation.